From the observation decks of the Galaxian command ship, we first observed them, not as a threat, not as conquerors, but as something altogether unpredictable. Humanity, a species so small, so fragile, that our earliest simulations had dismissed them entirely. Yet there they were, striding across the Stellar Council's corridors, unarmed, unyielding, as if the laws of our galaxy bent subtly in deference to their presence. We recorded their approach in silence. The humans' movements were deliberate, almost casual, but beneath the calm, we detected a force we could not quantify. Their eyes, dark and unflinching, burned with a clarity of purpose that unsettled even our most stoic advisors. They did not flinch at the sight of our ceremonial guards, nor did they hesitate under the glare of our emissaries. Their courage teetered on recklessness, yet it carried a precision, a certainty that made our calculations falter. Every word they spoke in the Stellar Council seemed designed to seed doubt, to unravel centuries of meticulously crafted protocol. Negotiations that once relied on intimidation now faltered before a simple human smile, a carefully placed pause, a glance that implied understanding beyond the confines of our languages. Our envoys whispered among themselves, acknowledging, reluctantly, that these beings might not merely survive in the galaxy's relentless machinery, they might bend it to their will. We traced the ripple of their influence as it spread through the council chambers. A vote shifted subtly, a protocol questioned, a faction hesitated where certainty had once reigned. Our sensors, designed to predict and control, could not reconcile their impact. For every tactic we employed, the humans responded not with weapons, but with resilience, not with fleets, but with presence. Even our veterans, hardened by decades of interstellar conquest, confessed a growing unease. The humans were not predictable. They were a variable we had never accounted for. They were chaos wrapped in discipline, defiance cloaked in civility. And as they settled into the council chambers, standing among us like an impossibility made flesh, we realized this was no mere diplomatic mission. This was an assertion, a statement. Little did we know, what began as a calculated observation from our high decks would ignite a chain of events that none of our simulations could foresee. Humanity was awake, and the galaxy, as we understood it, was about to tremble. The first ripple passed silently through our ranks. We had seen courage before, but never with such unyielding precision. And as the council doors closed behind the humans, a collective, silent question spread among us. How do you confront a species that refuses to be diminished and seems somehow untouchable? The answer, we feared, would come soon. The humans moved like currents through the Senate corridors, subtle yet unstoppable. At first, we noted only small disturbances, a whisper here, a hesitation there.
Representatives who once carried the certainty of empires now faltered under the simplest exchanges. Their arrogance, honed over centuries, gave way to an almost imperceptible doubt. We, from our observation decks, recorded every flicker of uncertainty, every faltering gesture, and yet could not discern the mechanism behind it. It was not force, it was not technology, it was something far more dangerous. Strategy, patience, will. We heard the low hum of speculation ripple through alien ranks, the murmurs of our envoys and advisors who could not reconcile these humans with our long-held assumptions. They whispered, voices taut with fear. Reports began to reach us, minor clauses amended, alliances subtly reshaped, crucial votes swayed by words alone. Each victory seemed insignificant in isolation, yet collectively they reshaped the Senate's fabric. It was as though the humans had tapped into a power beyond comprehension, one that did not rely on fleets, weapons, or intimidation. The force they wielded was subtle, invisible, yet capable of unraveling the order upon which we had built the galaxy. Our sensors detected the ripple of influence spreading outward, moving faster than any communication array could track. The humans spoke, and the galaxy shifted beneath their words. We watched as delegates hesitated mid-speech, as advisors retracted statements they had once delivered with certainty, as alliances frayed under the weight of their calm, unwavering logic. Even the Emperor's envoys, creatures whose cunning had shaped countless interstellar campaigns, found themselves unsettled. We, the observers, could feel the dread building within our own ranks. This species, so small, so fragile, and yet so unrelenting, defied every calculation, every expectation. They had not arrived merely to survive. They had arrived to influence, to manipulate, to assert a force of will that no algorithm could predict. And as the humans moved through the Senate, weaving their influence like a slow-burning fire, a chilling realization spread through us. We had underestimated them entirely. In the dim light of the council chambers, shadows stretched long across polished floors. The humans' calm certainty was a provocation we could not respond to.
We recorded the quiet tremors of doubt spreading among our delegates. The balance of power, once assumed absolute, was slipping. And though nothing yet had exploded into open conflict, we knew, deep in the calculations of our fear, that the tide was rising. Something unprecedented was awakening in the galaxy, and we, the alien observers, could only watch as the humans' subtle, inexorable influence spread, like ink through water, dark and unrelenting, seeping into every corner of the Senate. The first cracks had appeared, and soon, we feared, the foundation itself would tremble. Whispers began in the shadows, faint at first, easily dismissed by those confident in the Empire's unshakable order.
Yet in the Senate's vast chambers, these whispers gathered momentum. They slithered between desks, wound around towering holographic displays, and threaded through the private councils of our most seasoned leaders. Murmurs became cautious exchanges, and cautious exchanges became clandestine alignments. The influence of the humans, subtle and unassuming, had begun to fracture our most rigid alliances. We, stationed above in observation galleries and monitoring arrays, could track the imperceptible shifts in posture, the hesitation of once unyielding diplomats. There was a pattern to their precision, a slight nod here, a carefully timed question there, each interaction calibrated to expose fissures in the structure we believed unbreakable. Our leaders, trained to respond with logic and authority, struggled to maintain composure. Even the Emperor's closest advisors, a council whose cunning had orchestrated countless campaigns across light years, found themselves unraveling under the humans' methodical scrutiny. These creatures did not wield weapons in the traditional sense. No fleets, no energy cannons, no armies of mechanized soldiers. Instead, they carried a quiet inevitability, an unyielding focus that penetrated bureaucracy and ideology alike. Their calmness in confrontation was a blade sharper than any plasma lance, their composure a shield stronger than a starship's hull. We could see the unease ripple outward, from the smallest planetary representative to the Empire's high councils. Entire strategies were questioned, entire policies re-examined, because the humans refused to be intimidated. Even rumors of Earth, their homeworld, spread through our ranks. Tales of annihilation narrowly survived, of plagues endured, and cosmic-scale disasters overcome, circulated quietly among our analysts. These were not embellishments. They were historical certainties, verified by intelligence arrays and interstellar archives. Each revelation deepened our apprehension. We had assumed insignificance, had counted them as another minor species to be catalogued and contained. And yet, faced with their deliberate will, their resilience, we were forced to confront the impossible truth. They were formidable, not by size or technology, but by something far more elusive, their sheer capacity to endure and act with unflinching resolve. The humans moved like currents beneath the Senate's veneer of order, unseen yet potent. Where once there was obedience, there was now hesitation. Where once there was certainty, there was doubt. Subtle alliances began to form. Delegates who had once dismissed human presence as inconsequential now conferred in secrecy, questioning allegiances and policies that had been absolute for generations. Resistance to human intervention fractured along invisible lines. We, the alien observers, traced these patterns with a mixture of awe and dread. Every interaction was a study in precision. The humans' questions cut through centuries of legalistic obfuscation. Their observations illuminated contradictions and inconsistencies we had long ignored. Every policy we had assumed unassailable now appeared fragile, vulnerable to reason applied with unerring calm. And yet they moved without haste, never revealing the scope of their strategy, never allowing emotion to betray them. They were patient predators in a world that had never considered patience as a weapon. From our vantage points, we could see our most trusted leaders faltering. Their words stumbled mid-sentence. Their logic, once absolute, began to fracture under scrutiny. The human presence was a force field of inevitability. Every gesture, every carefully chosen phrase nudged the galaxy toward outcomes we had never foreseen. And though no direct confrontation had yet occurred, we felt a slow, insidious shift. The human's influence was spreading, intangible yet undeniable, like a shadow growing longer as the sun dips below the horizon. Even the youngest representatives, those with the least experience, displayed signs of hesitation. They looked upon the humans not with disdain, but with a strange mixture of fear and admiration. And as we cataloged these observations, the deeper truth became undeniable. These humans were rewriting the rules of engagement simply by existing within our structures, by refusing to conform to our expectations. Their calm was their weapon, their endurance their armor, their history a silent warning. Each human step through the Senate's marble corridors echoed louder than any fleet's engines, resonating through chambers and council halls alike. To us, they were an enigma, simultaneously ordinary and extraordinary, fragile and unstoppable.
And as murmurs turned into movements, movements into quiet revolts of the mind, we realized a chilling inevitability. The galaxy had misjudged them. Every calculation, every contingency plan, every strategy predicated on our superiority was now in question. And as we recorded the growing unease, a single thought resonated among us, whispered with rising dread. This was only the beginning. The humans' influence was no longer subtle, it was spreading, and somewhere beyond the council chambers, the first sparks of rebellion had ignited. We had anticipated negotiation, maneuvering, perhaps subtle defiance, but never this. The humans' audacity crystallized in a single figure, unarmed and resolute, standing at the center of the Emperor's chamber. From our observation decks, we could see the full scope, the polished floors reflecting 1,000 alien faces, the towering columns of the Senate's domed halls, the Emperor seated on his elevated throne, radiating centuries of authority. And there, unmoved by protocol, by fear, by the weight of galactic expectation, the human stepped forward. Every sensor aboard our ships recorded the moment. Heartbeats accelerated across species. The air seemed to thicken in the chamber.
The human's eyes, calm and unwavering, met the Emperor's glare. There was no weapon in hand, no fleet behind him, yet the energy he exuded was tangible, a force field of resolve that seemed to press against the walls themselves. We watched in disbelief as the Emperor rose, his authority trembling for the first time in recorded history. The first movement was subtle, a hand extended, a gesture meant to assert control. The human responded not with deference, not with retreat, but with inevitability. Each step he took carried weight beyond mere flesh and bone. Our monitors captured micro-tremors in the floor, the faintest quivers in the air, as if the chamber itself recognized the singularity of this act. The Emperor attempted command, his voice reverberating across the chamber, laced with centuries of practiced intimidation. But the human remained impervious, calm, patient, absolute. Then it happened. With neither hesitation nor fear, he seized the Emperor, not violently, but with an undeniable assertion of will, and began to drag him through the Senate halls. Senators froze mid-discussion, ambassadors' whispers cut to silence. Our fleet-wide sensors detected a spike in anxiety readings among every nearby system. Protocols, centuries old and unbroken, shattered under the weight of one human's presence. It was not aggression in the traditional sense. It was something far more profound. It was the manifestation of courage made visible, a physical proof that dominance could be redefined by audacity alone. The chamber fell into a peculiar silence. Only the scrape of imperial boots in marble and the soft, unyielding step of the human punctuated the moment. Our alien analysts, trained for every conceivable scenario, registered confusion, fear, awe, emotions that defied calculation. How could a species so small, so ostensibly insignificant, impose a force that rivaled entire fleets, entire armies, entire centuries of protocol? As the human advanced, the Emperor's aides attempted intervention, but hesitation gripped them. Every mind in the chamber recognized a shift. This was no ordinary confrontation. The human moved with precise deliberation, reading the room, calculating the path, navigating centuries of ritual without breaking a sweat. His calm demeanor became contagious, unsettling our own delegates in ways we could not have predicted. Those who had once wielded authority now found themselves watching, powerless, as a single being redefined the rules of power in real time. Outside the chamber, across communications networks, the act reverberated instantly. Fleets paused mid-orbit. Ambassadors on distant worlds froze mid-transmission. Across the galaxy, eyes turned toward the Senate, and none could look away. The audacity of one human, without weapons, without reinforcements, sent ripples through civilizations that had long believed themselves untouchable. Power, we realized, was no longer measured in firepower or strategic dominance. It was measured in courage, in the willingness to act when every calculation dictated restraint. The human dragged the Emperor past councils, past observers, past centuries of accumulated decorum. Every step was deliberate, almost ceremonious, as if history itself had slowed to observe. Some senators attempted subtle resistance, subtly shifting position or muttering challenges, but the human's gaze extinguished doubt. Calm, unyielding, impossibly patient, he moved forward. Each footfall seemed to mark the turning of eras, the rewriting of preordained fates. We, the alien witnesses, recorded everything. Every facial twitch, every gasp, every stutter of a diplomat frozen mid-gesture. Every microsecond confirmed what our simulations could not.
This was a species that refused to be diminished, refused to be controlled, and refused to obey the universe's long-held expectations of fragility. For those of us monitoring remotely, the awe was suffocating. Our instruments measured energy fluctuations, emotional spikes, neural responses, but these metrics failed to capture the magnitude. This was no technological war. It was a moral and psychological victory enacted through sheer presence and unshakable resolve. The Emperor, towering, formidable, regal, now seemed diminished, not through force, but through being unwillingly carried by the certainty of human purpose. And then the hallways beyond the chamber opened, the path through the Senate revealed itself, and the human pressed on. We observed the reaction of the Empire's elite. Some staggered, some whispered frantic counsel, some froze entirely. Their tactics, prepared over decades of intricate planning, fell into irrelevance. The calm, unarmed human had rewritten the rules. Ambassadors whispered to each other, unheeded. Senators glanced at one another, hesitant. Fleets remained in orbit, awaiting a signal that would not come. All protocol had been suspended, all expectation overturned, by the quiet assertion of a single, unstoppable will. We could see the subtle effect across the galaxy. Whispers of the act spread faster than the speed of any courier or transmission. The story traveled through networks, relayed by signals, echoed in diplomatic channels. A species that had been considered weak, dismissed, even pitied, had demonstrated that the measure of strength was not fleets, nor weapons, nor armies. It was resolve, courage, and the audacity to act when reason demanded surrender. The human reached the chamber's exit, every eye in the Senate fixed upon him, every mind strained to comprehend. History, long etched in stone and protocol, paused. The Emperor, still clasped by the human's firm, unflinching grip, glanced at us, the observers, alien and powerless, and for the first time we felt the enormity of insignificance. We were witnesses to a pivot in galactic history. Our systems captured every moment, the metallic scrape of boots, the ripple of shocked whispers, the stuttered commands of aides attempting to intervene, and the silent awe that followed each deliberate step. And as the human moved beyond the chamber doors, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. Power had been redefined, not seized, not commanded, but enacted through the immutable certainty of one being who refused to fear, who refused to yield, who refused to comply with centuries of expectation. We, the alien observers, could do nothing but record, marvel, and tremble. One human had accomplished what entire fleets could not. One human had demonstrated that true dominance was not imposed. It was asserted through courage, clarity, and unwavering intent. And as the doors closed behind him, the silent halls of the Senate echoed with a new truth. The galaxy would never be the same. The ripple was unstoppable. History, once predetermined by strategy, fleets, and protocol, now bent toward a human will. And from the observation decks, as our sensors traced the aftermath, we understood fully. One being, fragile, unarmed, yet immeasurably resolute, had altered the course of the universe. The galaxy watched, silent, awestruck, fearful, and above all, powerless to resist. The Senate chambers were silent for hours after the human's audacious act. What had begun as a single confrontation had rippled outward, fracturing alliances and destabilizing power structures that had held for centuries. Delegates returned to their seats, but the air remained thick with tension, the echoes of disbelief lingering long after footsteps had faded. Protocols, once inviolable, were now viewed as fragile veneers over a reality none dared acknowledge. We, stationed across the galaxy, observed the unfolding chaos in a mixture of awe and trepidation. Reports poured in from every system. Planetary governors hesitated, fleets paused in orbit, and emissaries on distant worlds repeated fragments of the event as though trying to comprehend a phenomenon beyond logic. Our communication arrays, designed to monitor activity across light years, struggled to transmit the subtle nuances, the pauses in conversation, the hesitation of leaders accustomed to certainty, the quiet reshaping of allegiances. Humanity's audacity had become contagious, a virus of confidence seeping into every corner of interstellar governance. The Empire, which had long projected invincibility, now trembled. Advisors argued among themselves, unsure whether to double down on control or retreat into silence. Long-held prejudices against humans, prejudices rooted in assumptions of weakness and irrelevance, eroded with every report. Species that had once dismissed them with patronizing certainty now speak in tones of caution, respect, and sometimes fear. Across the galaxy, beings of countless forms and civilizations acknowledged what we, the observers, could not ignore. Humanity had rewritten the rules of engagement simply by existing, by refusing to conform, by acting with unparalleled resolve. Even our most sophisticated simulations, which had predicted countless outcomes of interstellar diplomacy, failed to account for the ripple effects of one species' singular audacity. The human diplomats, unarmed and seemingly ordinary, had returned to their homeworld with little ceremony, leaving the transformed Senate behind. And yet, their absence did not diminish their impact, it amplified it. Every council meeting now carried the ghost of their presence. Every vote bore the shadow of their intervention. Policies that had seemed immutable were questioned. Alliances once assumed solid were reconsidered. Entire systems weighed their choices differently, knowing that humans had demonstrated the ultimate measure of influence, courage backed by unshakable will. We observed the reverence with which other species regarded humanity, not blind worship, not idolization, but a recognition born of fear and admiration intertwined. Their survival, their resilience, their ability to confront annihilation without weapons of mass destruction challenged doctrines that had governed civilizations for millennia. It was not brute force that had shifted the balance. It was presence, calculation, and the quiet confidence of beings who had faced extinction and emerged unbowed. Every diplomat, every senator, every fleet commander now measured humanity against a new standard, one impossible to ignore. Even as analysts trained in prediction and contingency planning, we struggled to map the consequences. Entire political structure shifted, subtle currents of thought redirected by the memory of one human's act. We observed alliances fray in silence, treaties reconsidered, and whispers of rebellion that had long been dormant now stirring with newfound momentum. The human's influence was not active. It did not require fleets or armies. It was the lingering imprint of their courage, their ability to alter perception simply by demonstrating what was possible. From our observation points, we watched the galaxy recalibrate. Worlds that had once relied on rigid hierarchies now questioned authority. Leaders who had prided themselves on certainty found themselves hesitant. And everywhere, humans, ordinary in appearance, extraordinary in effect, moved with purpose, knowing that their influence, subtle but undeniable, had shifted the course of interstellar history. We, alien narrators, could only marvel. We had dismissed them as fragile, inconsequential, a species that could be catalogued and ignored. Yet here they were, the pivot upon which the galaxy now turned. Even the smallest indicators told the story. Communication networks, once dominated by bureaucratic rigor, now carried tones of reverence and caution when reporting human activity.
Mercantile councils weighed their trade agreements differently. Military strategists recalculated priorities. Scientists who had observed human resilience on Earth now treated them not as subjects of curiosity, but as potential disruptors of universal order. Every measure, every prediction, every decision was subtly, inexorably influenced by a species previously underestimated. We recorded it all: the trembling hands of leaders, the flicker of doubt in previously unassailable eyes, the hushed whispers exchanged between embassies, and the silence of fleets awaiting instructions that might never come. Humanity had shown that influence need not be wielded like a weapon. It could be enacted with the quiet certainty of presence, the resilience of spirit, and the audacity to act where logic demanded restraint. Every ripple spread outward, touching systems far beyond the Senate itself, instilling a combination of fear, admiration, and awe that no military demonstration could replicate. As we monitored the slow realignment of interstellar power, it became clear that the humans' victory was both immediate and enduring. They had not conquered through fire or destruction, nor had they enforced their will through fear of annihilation. Their power was intrinsic, embedded in their capacity to endure, to act, to persist when every system in the galaxy expected surrender. They had redefined what it meant to be formidable. And though our fleets remained ready, our protocols intact, and our strategists alert, we understood a fundamental truth: the galaxy had changed. Humanity had become the standard against which every species would be measured. The fragile, unassuming diplomats had reshaped political landscapes, eroded assumptions of superiority, and instilled a pervasive awareness that sheer will, courage, and ingenuity could overturn civilizations without a single weapon fired. We, alien observers, cataloged every detail with awe and trepidation.
The humans' departure from the Senate did not end their influence. It merely extended it across the galaxy in waves of subtle, unstoppable effect. Plans once thought immutable were reconsidered, assumptions about strength and dominance were reevaluated, and everywhere eyes turned toward the homeworld of these unassuming yet formidable beings, aware that the smallest acts of courage had produced consequences far beyond calculation. In the quiet that followed, a new paradigm emerged. Humanity had proven that power was not dictated by fleets, by armies, or by technological superiority. It was defined by resolve, by the capacity to endure, by the willingness to act when all reason dictated fear. And as we, the alien narrators, continued to record the unfolding ramifications, we recognized what we had long failed to appreciate. A species we had once dismissed as insignificant now held the galaxy's balance in its hands, not through force, but through indomitable will.
The Senate, the Empire, the galaxy itself, all had been irrevocably changed, and from our observation decks we could only marvel, knowing that the smallest species, underestimated and overlooked, had become the pivot of history. Across the galaxy, stories of that day traveled faster than any fleet, whispered in council chambers, transmitted across communication networks, and murmured in the corridors of power. Humanity's defiance became legend, not for its spectacle, not for its violence, but for its audacity. One species, fragile in appearance, unarmed in action, had confronted centuries of domination and emerged victorious simply by the force of will. We observed the galaxy's slow, uneven recalibration. Alliances realigned, hierarchies questioned, and doctrines once regarded as absolute now trembled before the memory of human resolve. Even civilizations boasting centuries of technological supremacy found themselves re-evaluating every assumption. The raw, unyielding determination of a human spirit, ordinary yet extraordinary, proved impervious to prediction or control. It was not conquest as we understood it. It was inspiration, delivered with unshakable precision. The humans themselves returned to their home world, blending once more into lives that appeared ordinary, almost mundane. Yet the imprint of their presence lingered across star systems, a quiet but undeniable force. Delegates still recalled the calm defiance in every measured step, every unwavering gaze, every act that defied expectation. Across the galaxy, they were discussed in hushed awe, beings who had rewritten the rules of power, not through fleets, not through weapons, but through presence and courage. We, the alien observers, experienced a mixture of relief, fear, and admiration. Relief that the humans' acts had not resulted in outright war. Fear, knowing that a species so small could wield such influence. Admiration for the purity of their resilience and ingenuity. No calculation, no fleet, no empire could suppress the force of a determined humanity. As our sensors continued to record, a truth became clear. The galaxy had learned a lesson it could not unlearn. The improbable was always possible. The underestimated could alter the course of history. And from our observation decks, we witnessed the enduring legacy of one species that refused to be diminished, a species whose courage and determination would echo across time, shaping the very fabric of the stars. Humanity had not only survived, they had become the measure against which all others would now be judged. And in that realization, we felt awe unlike any before. The smallest species, unarmed, ordinary, had proven that resilience, courage, and unwavering will were the ultimate powers in a galaxy long ruled by fleets and empires.